Hi and welcome, I'm AnewZ and you are watching Context. The UN condemned a controversial US and Israel-backed aid distribution group operating in Gaza after chaotic scenes at a food distribution site in Rafah. Thousands of Palestinians rushed the aid point run by the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation in the south of the Strip just hours after the GHF announced it began distributing food. The UN Human Rights Office has said it believes 47 people were injured. A senior official said the organization is still gathering information, but that most of the injuries were due to gunshots and that it was shooting from the IDF. The Israeli military denied the accusations, saying that its troops only fired warning shots in the air. The GHF said it was overwhelmed with people seeking food and that its team decided to withdraw. In nearly 3 months of the Israeli blockade of the Strip, Gaza has been pushed to the brink of famine, according to a UN-backed report by food security experts. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu denied that people in the Gaza Strip are starving and that his country has a policy of starvation. Meanwhile, Berlin, one of Tel Aviv's staunchest allies, delivered a rare rebuke of Israel over its military actions in Gaza. As the war passes its 600-day mark, a new ceasefire and hostages deal remains elusive. On the latest in the Gaza war and possibilities of international pressure for a truce, we're talking with political analyst Enrique Cosero, coming to us from Madrid. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's start with the images from Rafah. The UN spokesperson called the sight of thousands of Palestinians storming the aid site heartbreaking. Even before the chaos that ensued, the GHF has come under criticism by the UN and many aid groups as a way to bypass the already established system. Is this US and Israel-backed solution viable in your mind?
I think it's a first step in order to get some humanitarian aid on the field in Rafah and by extension the rest of Palestine. It has been not a very good beginning, though, because all the chaos that we've seen. I've been reading news about that even maybe one person has been killed on those and that chaos. But I think it's a very long-awaited first step in order to get some sense of direction in whatever has been happening the last weeks. So let's see how this initiatives evolve. We don't have to forget. We can't forget that the EU is quite of pushing a lot to Israel in order to make this humanitarian grace more. I don't know how to say it. I want to say that allow more humanitarian aid, but right now, as we see on the search and the images and all the filming that we are receiving, right now is chaos. So let's see how that evolves. Probably there are gonna be needed more points in order to make the aid reach the people in Rafah. And this is, as I said, this is a very first step, and it's very soon to evaluate what this is gonna, in which this is gonna evolve.
This week, we've heard a very rare criticism coming out of Germany. Chancellor Friedrich Merz saying he does not understand the goal of what the Israeli army is now doing in the Gaza Strip, adding that a line has been crossed and international law breached. Given Berlin's history and its long-standing policies towards Israel, what do you make of that shift in the tone?
I think Chancellor Merz got two worlds to try not to collide. One is of course, something that we know that is their own German history, the South Germany history, which is completely unavoidable for a German chancellor. But the other has to be the pressure on Germany's own population Probably the public opinion of Germany is not very happy, whatever the past was, but probably the population in Germany, German citizens are not quite happy or not quite glad or not so supportive of whatever is going on in Gaza right now. So Chancellor Merz has to conciliate in some ways their position with Israel and the public opinion that probably is also pushing a lot in his country.
Staying in Europe, France had earlier announced it might recognize the state of Palestine in June, when it's set to co-host a UN conference on the two-state solution. We've seen Spain, Ireland, Norway, Slovenia taking that step recently. Do you believe that Paris recognizing Palestine would push more European countries to do so as well, and could that help the peace efforts?
Along this last 8-10 weeks, we've seen how a lot of positions have changed, have switched, have take a very cautious way to consider the conflict into a very openly against the conflict positions. But here we have to be very cautious as well, because we have to remember that Palestine never, ever wanted the two-state solution. It didn't happen in 1947. It didn't happen in I think it was 63, and already in the 21st century there was I think I remember it was 2003. The plan was rejected as well. If we're talking about a two-state solution, the first step here is to, what Palestine want to do in order to reach that agreement. And that is step zero, because step one after the war or during this war is Israel to commit to that goal. Today, we've learned that Mohammed Sinwar has been has been killed, as Netanyahu said. So Hamas is just getting fewer and fewer forces on the ground. But of course, we don't know. We can't right now to anticipate what is going to be the human consequences and the ideological consequences within the Palestine population in order to reach that agreement or keeping on the fight. As I said on the beginning of this question, the last 8-10 weeks has been witness of a huge shift on a lot of positions about the conflict.
We've heard something similar at the most recent Madrid group meeting. The Spanish foreign minister called for a suspension of Europe's cooperation deal with Israel and an embargo on arms. How symbolic would you say this call for an embargo is, given that Tel Aviv's top weapons suppliers are Washington, by far in the first place, followed by Berlin and Rome?
I think it's more way of pressure than a realistic way of putting some sort of actual pressure on Israel. Europe and Israel are so interdependent that mostly a lot of technology coming from Israel is not going to be found any other place. So that embargo could be, and it's not going to be on the same terms, of course. But I remember 2017 when Donald Trump, after the Airbus-Boeing conflict, for the competitiveness and prices of the airplanes, Donald Trump started the tariffs back then in order to put some pressure on Europe, and the tariffs went to the olive oil and wine. I mean, no huge elements of production or tech-savvy elements or tech-savvy objects in the market. So right now, let's see where where the European Union, the EU says, okay, we're gonna restrain some products, or we're gonna make some kind of embargo in here, because as I said, Israel and the European Union and the European countries are so interdependent especially in technology. So it's gonna be a very risky shot if you want to put pressure on Israel in order to avoid that this situation continues.
Well, the war unfortunately goes on as it broke the 600 days threshold. Protesters in Tel Aviv demanded the return of the presumed 58 remaining hostages in Gaza. However, hopes for a deal on their return in exchange for a ceasefire seem dim right now. There was a lot of confusion surrounding an alleged ceasefire proposal Hamas accepted, saying it came from the U.S. envoy, Steve Witkoff, which he later denied. Do you see a path to a deal being struck here, having in mind the current state of things?
We have to measure here two different views or disciplines, better disciplines, in order to reach an agreement. If Netanyahu says, okay, this is done, or this is going to be the ceasefire, the whole IDF are gonna stop whatever the struggle and whatever the combats are on the war. But we don't know for sure how Hamas is right now organized. If we're attending in front of small cells that they are intercommunicating with each other, or on just sort of a guerrillas, completely out of coordination, and coming back to that war doctrine that was the asymmetrical wars, right? So we know for sure that in one side, if Netanyahu says, okay, stop it, there's going to be a full stop on the IDF. No longer problem about that, I think. But on the other side, on Hamas side, we don't know how they are structured right now. If they are having an efficient or an effective communication within the groups, or more to a point, if it's true that Mohammed Sinwar has been killed, who's in front of Hamas, and who's right now authorized or leading any kind of group, or group of groups or group of cells, in order to reach a ceasefire that has to be respected. Because if what is just one cell just say, okay, I'm not going to go along with this, the thing can extend whatever that group wants. So right now the forces comparison is hard to make any kind of prediction if that a ceasefire comes is going to be respected.
Well, Enrique, thank you so much for joining us and offering your insights and opinions.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching. That is all we had for you in this edition of Context. Stay tuned to AnewZ.